ঠিক আছে আচ্ছা so now the improved view theory that is not part of your curriculum but that is in a way is able to address thick beam problems okay acha ebar what do we need we had the strong form and we have the boundary conditions and we can get a V statement okay, or any of the weak forms we can get actually the potential energy statement or V statement anyone in any of those we can get but since we have made this practice of getting the V statement let's say this is the one that we will get so 0 to L I'm writing the board so I should be going with larger font so EI W double prime V double prime V being the variation of W dx and this left hand side is what forms the stiffness matrix. Then on the right hand side the first thing that will be there so this is the distributed load which is in general a function of x and the variation and the next thing would be so this is going to be the force vector due to the distributed load. Next comes your concentrated force and for the sake of simplicity stick to the example of cantilever beam so there is some arbitrary distributed load by the way I'm still using the typical sign conventions of strength of materials these are all positive in Pandey method these are the positive quantities. So P times PL plus M times V prime at L. Okay. So this to also contribute to the force field. So we have the weak form. This you need to mention that this is true for all V which satisfy that V equals 0 in gamma U. So basically wherever the value of W and W prime is given, accordingly V or V prime should be 0. The next thing should be our shape functions. তোমরা কি ক্লাসে নোটস নাও তাহলে কি শেপ ফাংশন গুলো বলতে পারবে আগে থেকে যেগুলো ডিসকাস করা হয়েছিল প্রবলেম আছে
10th lecture
possible the last one where we discussed the beam shape functions
I have till 9th lecture the isoparametric elements
anyways so it's a good thing that you take class notes and actually I guess students from applied mechanics specialization should also learn about this. They don't take class notes, so since only they were present in the class, so you do not take the class forward. I believe the first shape function N1 is 1 by 4 2 minus 3 xi plus xi cube and see the idea here is that your anywhere the deflection is n times u hat so where u hat is essentially u1 u2 U3, U4 and if we think of a beam element these are U1 and U3 and these are U2 and U4 basically the two lateral translational deflections and two rotational deflections. And this is how the shape functions, this matrix right here. This one is transpose. So So the matrix of shape functions, so this is 4 cross 1. This is the transpose of this thing. And this is 1 cross 4. And this is actually composed of N1, LE divided by 2, N2, N3, and then N4 times LE divided by 2. Okay. So the idea was that these are the boundary conditions. W at 0 is U1, or if I am talking about xi, so the natural coordinate xi changes from -1 to 1. Okay. And x would change from x1 to x2. And therefore x is not the same function as the beam deflection. So as you can see, in beam deflection you need 4 shape functions, okay, and 4 degrees of freedom. Whereas to map the coordinates, you only have the coordinates from the two ends. So basically, you can only form linear shape functions. So 1 minus xi divided by 2 times x1 plus 1 plus xi divided by 2 times x2. And we are familiar with this type of shape functions from the linear bar element. So we know this particular quantity, the Jacobian, which is dx dxi, is going to be x2 minus x1 divided by 2, which could also be regarded as the length of the element divided by 2. Okay. Now the value of W when xi equals -1 is U1. Okay. And value of W when xi equals 1 is U3. Okay. Value of W prime when xi equals -1 is U2. But then you have to realize this is a derivative with respect to what? Physical coordinate. Okay. Therefore, dW design at -1 should be W prime at -1 times J inverse. Now ideally this J inverse should also be evaluated at -1. But turns out, if you assume linear mapping between the natural and the physical coordinate, so that Jacobian is a constant, and that Jacobian inverse is 2 divided by n. अच्छा একটা জিনিস বলবো, see this is actually see dw design is dw dx design. So it's not J inverse but J. So this thing right here is so this thing evaluated at -1. So it is U2 times LE divided by 2. Similarly, dW desired equals U4 times LE by 2. Okay. Now, if you club these two, we have the following expression for Wx. It is N1 times U1 plus U2 times LE divided by 2 times N2 plus U3 times N3 plus U4 LE divided by 2 times N4. So for example, if I want to find out the boundary conditions on N1, okay, so you see the coefficient of N1 in this expression is what?
Coefficient of N1
Yes,
is U1.
U1. Okay, so N1 is a polynomial in Xi, okay, and U1 is a coefficient. It's a value of U at some location, some fixed location. So it's not a function of Xi. N1 is a function of Xi. Okay. So the coefficient of N1 is U1, and that only appears in these four expressions how many times? Once. So the boundary condition on N1 is that N1 at -1 should be 0. Should be 1. N1 at 1 should be 0. You see, W1 is 0 here. So no U1 is there. Also, dN1 dxi at -1 should be what? 0. Otherwise, this term, or rather this term, would have U1. It doesn't have U1. You see, if N1, derivative of N1 at -1 were non-zero, okay, so some term involving U1 would appear over here. It didn't.
Yeah.
Also, dN1 dxi at 1 should be 0. Set. তো N1 তো হলো, এবার কি যেন বলছিলাম, হ্যাঁ। So N1, as we say, is a polynomial in Xi. Okay, and a polynomial which has to satisfy four conditions. What is the simplest polynomial can you think of?
Linear.
Cubic. It has to be cubic.
Polynomial.
Because see, these four boundary conditions would lead to four coefficients. Okay. So N1 is some sort of C0 plus C1 xi plus C2 xi squared plus C3 xi cube. Okay. Okay. So now satisfy these boundary conditions and get the expression for N1. Now look, if I write n1 equals 1 plus xi whole squared, okay, 2 minus xi. Now you question, where do I get this expression from? Now this part is obvious. Okay. So if you substitute, sorry, I made a mistake. So if you substitute xi equals 1, this goes to 0. And even if you take derivative of xi, okay, so that would be twice 1 minus xi, 2 plus xi, plus 1 minus xi whole squared. Okay? So twice 1 minus xi times 2 plus xi. Okay? And then 1 minus xi whole squared. Okay. Now I could have simply written it to be xi plus something. Let's say alpha. Okay. So it will be alpha over here. Now this thing is not normalized. Okay. So now you see that even at xi equals 1, the first derivative goes to 0. Okay. Now we need to ensure that at xi equals minus 1 also this goes to 0. So what do we have here? We have 1 minus xi times twice alpha plus twice xi. Okay. Plus 1. There is just one more change. This thing will come with negative sign. You see, 1 minus xi. Twice 1 minus xi, then minus 1. So minus 2 alpha, minus 2 xi, then plus 1 minus xi. Minus 2 alpha plus 2 xi plus 1 minus xi. Okay. So this should be then minus 2 alpha plus 1 plus xi. Okay. And this derivative must go to 0 when xi equals also minus 1.
That's the second part, right?
Yeah. This part should go to 0 when xi equals minus 1.
Then that right hand side part has to be 0. So if we just
Yeah, so this is 0
yeah.
and this one should be minus 1. But then alpha should be 0. That is not the situation.
Minus 2 alpha plus
1 minus xi whole square twice minus 2 1 minus xi alpha plus xi. So minus 2 alpha plus 2 xi.
Alpha is coming out to be 0 if you want to.
But if you satisfy the boundary conditions, what expression do you get?
If we satisfy the boundary conditions, I am getting C3 as 1 by 4.
So N1 would be something like 1 by 4, 2 minus 3 xi plus xi cube, right?
Okay. Actually, just C0 is left. I just might.
Okay, so it should be 1 by 4, 1 by 4, 1 minus I, 2 plus okay. So 2 into 1 minus 2 plus I square, or rather 2 minus I square. Is it so? 2 minus
Sir, the coefficient for the xi squared term is coming out to be 0, that is C2 basically.
yeah. So 2 minus 3 xi plus xi cube.
C0 is half.
C0 is off and C1 is minus 2, basically that's coming out to be.
So if I take 2 common,
So you are taking 1 by 4 outside.
1 minus xi, then xi times 1 minus xi.
Yeah, it's actually, yes sir, that's the expression we are getting.
That is 2 minus xi times 1 plus xi. So 2 minus xi minus xi squared. Sorry. Okay. So I don't think this is the correct way. You can simply satisfy the boundary conditions, and that way you can get the expressions. Okay. Okay. Now since we have the expression for n1, we can get the expression for n3 also, very similarly. So it should be 2 plus 3 xi minus xi. And check, this also satisfies all the boundary conditions. See, the two derivatives that will be automatically satisfied, because you see this simply has been, the sign has been changed. That's the only thing that has been done. Okay. So even if you take the first derivative, the values are still going to remain same. Okay. But what about the value of the function at xi equal 1 and minus 1? So that's the one that you are supposed to check. So if I take xi equals 1, it is 2 plus 3 minus 1, 4. So 1. 4 divided by 4 equals 1. If I take minus 1, this is 2 minus 3
2 minus 3 minus 1 plus 1.
minus 1.
Plus 1.
Sorry, if I take minus, plus 1. 2 plus 1 minus 3. So goes to 0. Now, the boundary conditions on n2. So n2 minus 1 is 0. n2 derivative at minus 1 should be 1. n2 value at 1 should be 0. And n2 derivative at 1 should also be 0. Okay. So do that and get the expression for n2. So consider again n2 to be composed of 4 coefficients. N2 turns out to be something like 1 by 4, 1 minus xi plus xi squared minus xi cubed. So when you put 1 and minus 1, if I put 1, so 1 minus xi equals 0, then 1 xi squared minus xi cubed, that also goes to 0. If I put minus 1, then 1 plus 1, 2, then
1 minus 1, 1 plus 1, 2, 4. I'm getting 4 over.
So I'm supposed to get 1 minus xi squared plus xi cubed. So if I take minus 1, 2, So 1 plus 1, 2, and then minus 1.
minus 1,
Minus.
minus 1, minus
Okay. But if I take 1, then what would happen?
0,
1 minus 1 equals
yeah,
0.
it will negative.
1 minus 1 equals 0. Yeah. Okay. Now what would be the derivative? Derivative should be minus 1 plus 2 xi, sorry, minus 2 xi plus 3 xi squared, and that should be equal to 0 at xi equals 1. Okay, if I take xi equals 1, this should be 0.
Yeah.
But if I take xi equals minus 1, then it is 1 plus 2, minus 1 plus 2 plus 3, so 4.
minus 1 plus 1.
Now, again try that for M4.
For n4 we will be getting it's equals to 1 and 1. That's the only change.
Yeah, that's the only thing that changes. So,
So the previous expression which you wrote for that one, before changing the sign, I think that will work.
will that work? Like
1 minus xi plus xi square.
plus xi squared minus xi cube, you're saying? But this one has a problem that if I take
Derivative.
xi, you see these two should have opposite signs.
Opposite signs.
These two should have opposite signs and these two should have opposite signs. So that whether you take 1 or minus 1, both goes to 0. Because you can write this one also xi times 1 minus xi squared. This two. So that is there, and
Then if we just reverse the signs.
you're saying 1 plus xi.
Yeah.
Minus sign. Minus sign.
1 plus
Minus xi cube. Should
and
this work? Just check.
next.
If I take xi equals 1 and xi equals minus 1, it goes to 0.
It goes to 0.
But if I take the derivative, then it is 1 minus 2i xi minus 3 xi squared. So if I take xi equals 1,
It should come to 1.
it should come to 1. Is it so?
No. It's not coming to 1.
It's not coming to be 1, it's coming to be
Minus
minus
1.
1.
Minus 1.
Okay. So basically it is minus 1 minus xi plus xi squared plus xi cube.
Yeah.
So minus plus plus. So when it is xi equals 1,
Then it's coming out.
then it is 5 minus 1, which is 4.
By 4
And,
it's
and if I take xi equals minus 1, so minus 1, minus 2, so minus
plus
3
3
plus 3 goes to 0.
0.
So these are the 4 shape functions. And that way we have figured out the 4 shape functions. So, yeah, so we can skip everything that is here. Now we can directly proceed for the formulation, final formulation. Okay. So,
Sir,
please remember-
just needed one clarification. Let's
Yes.
say during the exams, if we are formulating the shape functions,
Yes.
can we omit, like we can derive one equation, let's
Yes.
say we derive n1, and then using this same syllogism that we use.
your argument should be valid. That's it.
Okay.
So, so W at any x, now we have realized this is our A matrix, which is A1, A divided by 2, because all is satisfied for N2, N3 and N4 are derivative with respect to xi. So to consider derivative with respect to a physical coordinates, we need to do this in n2, n3 and LA divided by 2 times n4 times these 4 degrees of freedom per element. Okay. And in the variational formulation, we either require the variation or the second derivative of that. Same applies to W. So we need the second derivative of W with respect to X. And that would simply be 1 divided by J square dW dxi dw dxi2 during see, I am simply taking derivative with respect to X. So once I take derivative with respect to X, then I need to multiply 1 by J. J is a constant, so J is not changing. Next time I am taking derivative, I will keep 1 by J and then I will take derivative of dw dxi. Of that, I will take derivative with respect to X. So basically there will be a situation dx of dw dxi. Okay. So basically now I need to get the second derivative with respect to xi. So that is essentially this times 1 by J. And you had 1 by J beforehand. So
1 by J.
now you see this U1, U2, U3, U4 are coefficients to certain polynomials, cubic polynomials. So by the way, we have been using Lagrange polynomials for isoparametric elements. Here we are not using an isoparametric element. How do I know it's not an isoparametric element? Because X is mapped with one set of shape functions, the physical coordinate. The degree of freedom is mapped with a different set of shape functions. Now the question remains, what sort of shape function V must be used? Can you answer that question? Should I use that of X or should I use that of W?
For the V.
For V.
Variation. So for the boundary parts,
No.
only on
Shape functions are only related to variation within the element. For the variation, what set of shape functions must be used? The ones that are used for the physical coordinate or ones that are used for the degree of freedom?
Sir,
Degree of freedom. Yes, as simple as that. Why is that? Because you see, you need boundary conditions on V and V prime. So your treatment on V is same as that of W. So if you are taking, if you are considering shape functions for V, those must be the same one
for the
as of W. Again, what is the physical significance of that? You are not looking for all possible functions. You are only looking for a set of functions which are cubic in X or xi. If X is linear in xi, so cubic in xi means cubic in X. Now you are looking for those cubic solutions. Number one. Now, knowing that, so if you have understanding of probability, it's the condition of probability. Knowing that you are only searching for functions in the set of all possible cubic functions. It's not always that the shape of the elastic or the neutral axis of the beam is always cubic. When it is even deforming statically, depending on what sort of distributed load you have, even if it is an uniform distributed load, you see your deformation shape will not be cubic, it will be a fourth order polynomial. Okay? Even if uniformly distributed load. Now imagine it could be sinusoidal, exponential, logarithmic, anything. Okay? Even simple linearly varying. So in none of the cases with non-zero distributed load do you have cubic deformation pattern. So you are of course trying to get an approximate solution in a subset of all possible functions, and that subset is called all possible cubic polynomials. Okay. So now when you are searching for a solution of your primary function, okay, in a subset, in a given subset, the variations you are allowed to use, okay, or allowed to consider, must also belong to the same subset. আমরা Rayleigh's method দেখেছি, the variation can be mapped with the trial functions. or we can call them basis functions, which are only equivalent to the shape functions that are here. Okay. So, just like the variations in Rayleigh-Ritz method, they can be mapped with the basis functions over there. Here also the basis, the variation should be mapped with all these shape functions over here. So the general expression of V should be simply the way W is mapped, and if I can write this thing to be some sort of n matrix, and this is the U hat vector. So V is also, and this is how we do it for V transpose n transpose. It's in the end a dot product of a row and a column vector. So no matter which one you take to be row and column, doesn't matter. আচ্ছা, এবার বলো তোমার প্রশ্ন।
হ্যাঁ স্যার, বলছিলাম যে মানে যখন আমরা ফাইনাল মেটেরিয়াল নিয়ে কাজ করি তখন তো ম্যাক্সিমাম মেটেরিয়াল তো স্টিল থাকে, বা স্টিলের তো মানে ধরুন স্টিলের তো ডিফ্লেকশন অনেক কম, তাহলে কি আমরা লিনিয়ার শেপ ফাংশন নিলে কি বেস ফিটিং?
স্টিলের ডিফ্লেকশন অনেক কম।
হ্যাঁ,
স্টিলের ডিফ্লেকশন অনেক কম। ফর আ স্টার্টার এটার মধ্যে অনেকগুলো প্রবলেম আছে। প্রথম প্রবলেম যেটা হচ্ছে যে মেটেরিয়ালের ডিফ্লেকশন নয়, তোমাকে ভাবতে হবে স্ট্রাকচারের ডিফ্লেকশন। এখানে কোনো দেখানো মতো এক্সাম্পল দেখাতে পারলে খুব ভালো হতো। এটা একটা বিম ভাবো, এর একটা ডাইমেনশনকেই শুধু পাবো, ঠিক আছে? এভাবে টেনে দেখো তো কতটা ডিফ্লেকশন করতে পারো। 1% ডিফ্লেকশন করতে পারবে কি? পারবে না। কিন্তু এর লেন্থের 1%-এর অনেক বেশি, 20% ডিফ্লেকশন আমি এভাবে করতে পারছি। এটা থেকে কি বোঝা? বেন্ডিং এ অনেক বেশি ডিফ্লেকশন, ঠিক আছে? এবার সোজা কথা, and that deformation is only within the elastic limit. Okay, so if the strains are below elastic limit, but the net deflection that is of significant magnitude. এটা একটা। 2 নম্বর কথা হচ্ছে যে বেন্ডিং এ মানে তুমি বলছো একটা পয়েন্ট থেকে আরেকটা পয়েন্টের মধ্যে লিনিয়ার শেপ ফাংশন ইউজ করাই যায়। আমরা স্ট্যান্ডার্ড অয়েলার বার্নওয়েল বিম ফর্মুলেশনে যেহেতু আমরা মানে কি বলবো, we say the slope of the prime is same as the angle of rotation. Basically, আমরা যখন একটা beam deflection থেকে দেখি, okay, so at any point if I draw a tangent and that tangent makes an angle of theta with the horizontal, so basically this is W prime, the tan theta is W prime, okay, but since tan theta is really small, okay, we take W prime equal theta, okay, and we use that on. এখন লিনিয়ার শেপ ফাংশন করা যায় না তা না, করা গেলে যেটা হয় যে তোমাকে যদি একটা বিম মডেল করতে হয় তার জন্য অনেকগুলো এলিমেন্ট তোমাকে ইউজ করতে হবে, সিঙ্গেল এলিমেন্টে তুমি করতে পারবে না। তুমি যদি ধরে নাও মেজরিটি অফ ইউর লোডিং ইজ কনসেন্ট্রেটেড ফোর্স, then this Euler-Bernoulli beam formulation at the end of the derivation you will see is good enough for an entire beam to be modeled with a single element. Okay, ঠিক আছে? সেই ফোর্সে যেখানেই লাগবে। এবার now I just mentioned Timoshenko beam element. If you go to any kind of software, the Timoshenko beam element, there this relation is not true. Okay. Yeah, this relation is not true. How is that relation not true? Because there the theta means something else. এখানে আমরা কি ধরে নিই, আমরা যখন Euler-Bernoulli beam করি, স্লেন্ডার বিম কনসিডার করি, আমরা এখানে রোটেশন কিসে দেখছি, we are talking about the angle that the tangent meets. But by definition, the angle that we are talking about is that of the cross section. Okay.
orthogonal angle.
বলি
আচ্ছা
আমরা যখন অয়েলার বার্নৌলি বিম পড়েছি আমাদের আন্ডারগ্রেডে,
হ্যাঁ
okay, there one of the major assumptions that we made, the normal sections that are normal to neutral axis, they remain normal, which is true in pure bending. সোজা ঠিক আছে। এবার ধরো এটাকে শিয়ার স্ট্রেস দিয়ে বলি, শিয়ার কিভাবে কাজ করে? তাহলে ক্রস সেকশন বিল্ডিংটা কি হবে? পয়েন্ট বি দ্যাট অ্যাঙ্গেল থিটা রাইট দেয়ার, মানে যেটা অরিজিনালি এরকম ছিল সেখান থেকে হয়তো কিছুটা এরকম হয়েছে, ঠিক আছে। সো দ্যাট থিটা is not even in a small magnitude representing W prime over here. Okay. So the theta and the W prime become two independent variables. I mean, not completely independent. They are not directly related like this. Okay. Of course, there is a combined formulation because you see the shear force and the bending moment are also related. And that theta is that theta has the effect of both the bending and also the shear force. Okay.
I'm only considering the bending over there.
Yeah. In Euler-Bernoulli beam, all you are doing is considering the theta.
হ্যাঁ
এবার তুমি যখন ওই দুটোকে কনসিডার করো in Timoshenko beam, then you cannot simply write the cubic equation that we are doing here. Here I have the privilege of writing the cubic shape function. How? Because if I take one element with two nodes, okay, then I have 4 degrees of freedom and I can construct a cubic polynomial out of it. Okay. In Timoshenko beam theory also, if you take theta and W, you have 4 degrees of freedom. But then you cannot have a direct relationship like this, with an equality. Okay. And then the Timoshenko beam formulation is also an isoparametric beam formulation. Okay. There, you map W1 and W2, okay, with linear shape function. Also, W1 prime and also theta 1 and theta 2 using linear shape function. Okay. But then to model a single beam, single cantilever beam fixed at one end, no distributed load, point load at the end, to get accurate results. Of course, you can model the entire thing in a single linear element, but probably to get an accurate result, you need 4 or 5 of those. Okay. And now we have also learned about quadratic bar element. In the same way, we can have quadratic Timoshenko beam element. So basically, there will be 3 node, 6 degrees of freedom, but 3 separate and 3 separate degrees of freedom. W1, W2, W3, theta 1, theta 2, theta 3. So you can form quadratic polynomials in those. Basically, I believe those are beam 188 and beam 189 answers. I may be making mistakes, but you can search in the internet. Timoshenko beams in answers probably are 188 and 189. So 188 is linear, 189 is beam 188 and beam 189. Beam 189 is quadratic. So you can have linear and quadratic shape functions involving those set of variables. But here also you could have done it. Okay. But here the relationship between W and theta is so direct. Okay. It doesn't make sense that you first have linear shape functions and then make a correlation between the two. That somehow W prime equals theta. Okay. So it would be a more simpler formulation with this one, where you involve 4 of those and have a cubic shape functions. With an added advantage that your profile now becomes cubic and you can exactly trace for a slender beam. Okay. I'm not talking about a physical real life beam. All I'm talking about a beam from the beam formulation. You can exactly model a beam. Okay. You see, you are integrating a differential equation. So you get an exact integration of that differential equation. That differential equation is some sort of model came from human mind. Okay. So that's not the real life beam that I'm talking about. That's a different thing. Okay. But here we are not talking about there is an object, whether you model it as a rigid body or a deformable body or or whether you consider to be a particle and or a rigid body. Particle is where you are not considering its dimensions to be significant. When Earth is rotating around Sun, then you may be considering it as rigid body. Then you are considering the dimensions, not the changing dimensions. Okay. Then third thing could be that you consider that to be a deformable body. Then you are considering its deformations. Okay. And then you have all sorts of partial differential equation and differential equations, because now the deformation happening between any 2 points within the geometry. Okay. But then that's not the most accurate model. We know, because the material is composed of atoms and grains. Okay. If you can make, you can take care of those, grain boundaries, cracks, and whatnot, your line and point defects, etc. That's a more accurate model. Okay. But then you know that the atoms are also empty mostly. They are made of other particles. Okay. How much fundamental can you make your model? Okay. So the model is something that helps us solve an engineering problem. Finite element method, at least that the part that we are studying here, it's on the basis of the deformable body. So not particle, not rigid body, but deformable body. Okay. And it assumes something called continuum. And this is how it spells. Couple of U's and M, like that one. So continuum means that the way I understand it, this is your body. If I were to draw a straight line out of it and map any property, Young's modulus, density, and imagine the coordinate of this line is S, so the density may not be constant, but it should be a smooth curve. Imagine you are in that scale where you have distinct grains. That doesn't have to be distinct atoms, but distinct grains. Do you think this is how it is going to be? I don't think so. That's not a good thing. दूसरा वाले की बोलते थे ना?
No, sir.
दूसरा वाला.
Green ही part आता है क्या मतलब basically green का नहीं.
See, it's no doubt that real life objects are made of grains.
Yeah.
But here we are not modeling them that way. We are modeling them to be continuum. If there was empty space between 2 grains, and if I were to plot density along this coordinate right here, I would have the gaps in the plot, right?
Okay.
But imagine you zoom it out, okay? So much so, the individual grains are really, really tiny. Okay. And also, this curve has gaps, but very frequently and very tiny. So you can treat it to be like a continuous curve. And when you find that curve to be continuous, which is the scale that we operate in, you will refer to that as continuum. So basically the idea is you have an object, it's totally packed with material. Okay, it's like মানে যেমন সিমেন্ট গুলে একটা বক্সের মধ্যে ভরে দেয় সেরকম ভাবে there is just material, there is no gap, no pores, no grains, no gap, no crystallographic error, anything. Okay, so that's what we are working with where we have differential equations. Okay, but now there is a physical world, there is a model world, and then we have the problem where we cannot simply integrate our differential equations as we want, because some of them are nonlinear. Even the most simple ones are coupled partial differential equations, because now you are solving problems in 3D. But right now we are not doing that. We are only solving the simplest 1D problems. Okay. But even if in that 1D problem, let me make that Q for you to be some sort of sine hyperbolic of 1 by sine x or something. Now try to integrate that linear equation. Okay. So in all those situations where I cannot integrate the differential equation, I need a numerical method. That's what is finite element method. Now the accuracy of the finite element method is a concern. Okay. And now we know that if I am working with the Euler-Bernoulli beam equation with distributed load, that's why the right hand side is 0. I know that that equation is going to be giving me a cubic cubic solution for W. No matter what the boundary conditions are. Boundary conditions come later. Okay. The differential equation is only going to give me a cubic profile for W. Okay. And that by taking this set of shape functions, I know. So you are talking about the steel has less deflection and I'll get exact solution considering linear profile. Yes and no. Yes and no. Yes, maybe you get correct solutions with W's. Okay. Which also you would not get with Timoshenko beam element. With a single element, okay, single linear element. Actually, there are some benchmarking showing that this much error happens if you consider a cantilever with a single linear Timoshenko beam element. In ANSYS, your verification manuals. There are a lot of verification manuals in ANSYS, so you will find there. But the thing is, there are a lot of things that we model. For example, we may not be happy with only deflection. We also may want to know the rotation. Okay. We also may want to know how much is the your bending stress, or maybe even the shear stress. Okay. Now, the stress components, they come as a derivative of the primary functions. So they are proportional to strain. Strains are derivatives of the deflection. So you think that are you going to get the same level of accuracy over time? আমি তোমাকে একটা জিনিস বোঝাতে চাই, ধরো at x equals 0, cos x is 1. And if I get cos of x equals 1, how much longer do you think it is going to be accurate? As compared to, if I integrate something, integrate this quantity, I will get sin of x. And that expression is going to be simply x, satisfying the boundary condition that x equals 0, sin of x is 0. Now, which one of these two expressions do you think is more accurate? The integrated quantity or the differential quantity?
Integrated quantity.
Integrated quantity. You see, I am considering x to the power 1 terms. But and here I am considering x to the power 0 terms. So, the more you go towards the derivatives, you get less and less accurate. That's the best. So yeah, if you are considering linear shape function, probably you should get 5 or 6 elements for a single cantilever. Here I can go with single element.
This was actually I was trying to ask that if we increase the number of elements in between, that then we can get a better accuracy with a linear element. When they said that we can use 5 or 6 elements compared to a single
হ্যাঁ,
element.
এটা জিনিস ভাবো যে this is your bar and this is your deflection profile. এখন দুটো আলাদা অ্যাক্সিসে প্লট করলে একটু কনফিউজিং হতে পারে। তোমার খেয়াল রাখতে হবে যে বারের কোঅর্ডিনেট আর তার ডিফ্লেকশন দুটো কিন্তু এক রিলেশন, এক্স রিলেশন। It's just that for the sake of visibility, I'm plotting it in the y direction. And that could be any arbitrary function.
Yeah.
But if I take linear shape function, it can only model a line segment.
Line segment.
So it can only model piecewise linear. Okay. তো আমি যদি এরকম So if I take only single element, it should probably give me this.
This is just a basic.
Typically, finite element solution is smaller than the exact solution. It is said that the finite element stiffness of the finite element model is slightly higher or typically higher. The coarser the mesh, the higher the stiffness than the exact differential equation will predict. Why? Again, if you are considering a deformable body, you are essentially considering a continuum, which basically means infinite number of degrees of freedom. If you are considering finite number of degrees of freedom, that means you are curtailing, you are
Basically,
truncating some of the degrees of freedom. Okay? So,
that is there.
হ্যাঁ মানে আমি যেটা বলতে চাইছি যে ধরো আমার হাতটা কেউ একজন ধরে রেখেছে, ঠিক আছে, আর এখানে আমার হাত one degree of freedom is constrained. So how much force would it take for that person to pull me there? Imagine how much force would it require. Now imagine someone else is also holding my leg. So earlier I had like 3 degrees of freedom. Now I have 2 degrees of freedom. So this time I am a stiffer structure for the person to pull. So lesser the degree of freedom, the stiffer is the structure. Since I am modeling the actual differential equation in finite element formulation as a finite degree of freedom system, everything is finite.
It's getting stressed.
So that's by default it is at least slightly stiffer compared to your actual
The
actual differential equation suggests. Okay? মানে ব্যাপারটা এরকম যে there is physical objects, we are not talking about that, we are talking about the models that come from the differential equation. So even with regard to the differential equation, your finite element model could be slightly stiff. এটা কি আমি যদি ধরে যে দুটো এলিমেন্ট দিয়ে মডেল করি, probably I will get something like this. Okay, 10টা দিয়ে মডেল করলে আমি হয়তো
একটু ক্লোজ
এরকম কিছু পাবো। হ্যাঁ, হয়তো আমি অলমোস্ট আমরা তো বলতে পারবো।
একটু ট্র্যাকিং হবে।
So the point is, the more and more element that you take, the more and more accurate you get. Okay, and in the end, after putting substantial number of elements, okay, you would see that essentially those line segments are able to model your, curved path. And but the thing is, for a generic problem, you would not have that solution that I drew in the beginning, the exact solution. So how do you know you have achieved good enough accuracy? Is when by improving the mesh, you are not getting significant change in the solution. Okay. Stress and the deflection, they are not significantly changing. In that situation, you would claim that I have reached something called mesh independence or grid independence. Okay. So I have modified, I have improved the mesh so much, or I have refined the mesh so much that refining further would not yield into significant change in the solution, significant improvement in the solution. Okay.
So one more thing
Yes.
So basically, the change which I am getting after increasing the mesh,
Yes.
like mesh basically is the number of elements which I am dividing the whole body.
Yes, yes.
Right. So let's say if we have the single element which we are doing by the statement currently, and then he pointed out that if we use a linear element and then divide it further into very various parts, so which would be a better solution? Linear elements are basically easier to solve. So if we
Yes.
always go by this terminology that
হ্যাঁ।
many elements.
এবার এখানে দুটো জিনিস আমি বলি। একটা হচ্ছে যে একটা জিনিস যেটা বলতে চাই সেটা হচ্ছে ধরো আমি যে কোনো আর্বিট্রারি কার্ভ নিই, সেটাকে can I model that to be piecewise linear function? I can when the pieces are infinitesimally small. ঠিক আছে, I can do that. Number one. তার মানে হচ্ছে যে, and also we have discussed this before, that if I am searching in a subspace which contains the exact solution, I am going to get exact solution from finite element method. Because you see, in any given subspace of functions, the finite element solution method is trying to minimize the error. এই পার্টগুলো ডিসকাস করা হয়েছে আগে লেকচারগুলো যদি একটু দেখো, মানে অনেক প্রজেকশন নিয়েও দেখানো হয়েছে যে রেসিডুয়াল মিনিমাইজ করা হচ্ছে না। তো now if I solve with infinite number of linear elements, okay, I am bound to get the exact solution. If I do not take infinite number of elements but finite number, but a large number, I am going to get a pretty accurate result, not exact but
Close to.
pretty accurate result. That's what we are going to get. Ebar, the question is that should I go for a higher order polynomial or should I go for higher mesh refinement? Well, probably 10, not even 10, not 10, but let's say probably 5 linear elements cannot trace a curve more accurately compared to a single quadratic element. Whereas a single quadratic element would probably require 3 degrees of freedom, and 5 linear element would require 5 degrees of freedom, 6 degrees of freedom. So then you can argue that the curvature, which can only be captured by curved profile, so probably the parabolic curves are big. Okay, parabolic shape functions are big. But in that argument, the cubic are even better. Even मुश्किल देखिए, you have a model, a CAD model, and you are trying to mesh it. At certain point, you decided to upgrade the model in terms of the mesh, that is to refine, that is to incorporate more and more degree of freedom. One way could be to go for higher order polynomial shape functions. The other way could be to go with
Greater number of
higher number of elements. Lower order element, but higher number of elements. Now, if you want to go with polynomial, please understand, there can be only a limited number of options when going into higher polynomials. Because every time you change the underlying shape function, the entire finite element formulation changes. The expression for the stiffness matrix, in particular, the expression for the stiffness matrix changes. I'm not just talking about the size. The size can be figured out. Let's say if I'm going with cubic polynomial, I know the size of the element stiffness matrix should be 4 by 4 for a bar element. Okay. So size is not the issue, but the terms inside the matrix, okay, they change. Now, who is better at doing the formulation, computer or human? Human. But who is better at having the same type of calculation done multiple times? Computer. And because finite element method will be implemented in computer, so better go with more lower order element. That being said, there are options, of course, in finite element tools, okay, finite element softwares, which would that is to go with higher or lower order elements, and typically that would mean that either go with linear element or quadratic element. So I don't have the knowledge that any finite element software uses cubic shape functions and all, apart from the beam one. Okay, so if you are looking in ANSYS, there is an archived element that would be used before 2010. Okay, it's called beam 4, that uses Euler-Bernoulli formulation and uses this so-called harmonic polynomial. Beam 4 now is archived, and you will not be able to find it from the workbench interface. Okay, you can find it from APDL interface, but you'll have to try it. And if you are new to the software, there is no way you can figure out. There is something called Beam 4. Okay, so but there are other issues also with higher order polynomials. Not the formulation itself, but how they are implemented in the finite element softwares. Okay. And that I plan to discuss maybe in another month. Okay, probably in another month we will be in a position to discuss something called serendipity element. Okay, and then you would realize that why we would not even go for, particularly when you are working in 2D or 3D, why would not we want to go for higher order shape functions? Even the quadratic answer. Okay. So that being said, let's focus on the formulation. We have figured out that this is how our dWdx or ww prime should look like. And that would be del in or du/mi d sin 2 matrix. So basically take each of the shape functions, okay, and take double derivative with respect to xi, multiplying with u hat, basically containing all the degrees of freedom. Okay, and the same expression for v double prime should be this whole thing with 1 by j squared. This whole thing we would regard as the B matrix, and V double prime will be defined as V hat transpose B transpose. So it's a 4 cross 1 matrix, essentially derivative of the double derivative of the shape functions. One cross 4 is 4 cross 2. পড়ে গেল এখানে যে প্রতিটা টার্ম আছে as in n1 take double derivative with respect to xi, then keep that coefficient eliminated by 2 and then take double derivative of n2. Okay. So write down the expression for B matrix.
For V matrix,
B matrix. So basically take the derivative of individual shape functions. Double derivative.
double derivative.
So if I take double derivative d2 in 1 d xi 2, it would be 1 by 4 times 6 xi. Isn't that
For
correct?
For n1.
Double derivative.
Sir, n1 is 2 minus 3.
Wait, double
double
derivative. Double derivative.
Double derivative.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Then.
And this one is just remember this coefficients A by 2 would still be there in the B matrix. Minus 3 by 2 side. D2 into D xi 2 would be one by 2 minus xi plus 3 minus 1 plus 3 xi and d2 into 4 d xi 2 should be 1 by 2 1 plus 3 xi. Yes. So put them, substitute them in the B matrix and write down the expression for B matrix.
For Vx.
Huh?
For V.
For B matrix.
B matrix, yeah, we have. I got.
আচ্ছা দেখা হয়ে গেছে Now, for the Weierstrass statement, if I take the left hand side, I can write it to be 0 to L, okay. V hat transpose, actually I can put the limit to be from minus 1 to 1, V hat transpose, V transpose, then this EI is just a scalar. So you can understand that B transpose is actually 4 plus 1 vector. Okay, that immediately multiplies to 1 plus 1 EI, or you can actually take EI outside of the integration. Then B times, there should be dx, but I am writing dx in this format. It is j times d xi. J of course is LE divided by 2, and this whole thing multiplying u hat. This b times u hat would be double double. Now out of this integration basically gives you the element stiffness matrix. So to calculate the element stiffness matrix, we need to calculate this matrix right here, which is B transpose B. That is going to be a 4 by 4 square matrix with terms which are functions of xi. For example, the first term should be 9 by 4 xi square. Similarly, you see this matrix right here, B transpose B. I know it's a symmetric matrix. How do I know? You take any matrix of any size. Okay? A would be of size Nm. You take the transpose of that, it becomes Nm. So it multiplies to A, convertible to multiplying. The product is a N cross N matrix. But what happens if I take a transpose of that? What happens if I take A and B and make a transpose of that? It becomes B transpose A transpose. And anytime I have A transpose A, then the transpose of that is A transpose transpose, which is A. So the transpose of something, if it's the same quantity, then it's a symmetric matrix. Belongs to the set of all symmetric matrices. So I know B is a symmetric matrix. I'm skipping the term. Let's say it is 1 by 4, 1 minus 1 minus 6 xi plus 9 xi square. Is it? 2 term? 2 term check करो.
Sir, LE by 4 का आशुन?
LE by 4 का आशुन.
मतलब LE by 2 basically. मतलब LE square by 4 हो जाएगा.
LE square by 4. The third one is also 9 by 4 xi square. The fourth one, the four terms will be LE square divided by 4, 1 by 4, 1 plus 6 xi plus 9 xi square. তাই হচ্ছে কি?
Last term. Yeah.
তাহলে আমার এখানে চারটে টার্ম হয়ে গেল। বেসিক্যালি 16টা টার্মের মধ্যে 16টা টার্মের মধ্যে আমাদের বার করতে হবে হচ্ছে মানে 10 at 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. Okay, so I have gotten 4 of those. You can get the rest of the rest. 1 3 টার্মটা কত হবে? 1 3 টার্মটা হবে হচ্ছে -9/4 জাই স্কয়ার, তাই না? 1 3
হ্যাঁ, yes sir, minus 9/4 sin square. Yes.
and the 2 4 term should be L square divided by 4 1/4 1 minus 9 জাই স্কয়ার
9 sin square. Basically L square by L square by 16 or minus 9 sin square.
মানে a plus b minus
হ্যাঁ, I mean.
এবার বাকি কত রইলো? একটা দুটো
আর
তিনটে চারটে।
তিনটে হ্যাঁ।
করে বলুন। So all of these 4 terms will have single L/2.
First one হচ্ছে 2
So this thing is minus 3/2 sine 1 plus sine plus 3 sine square minus 3/4 sine plus 3 sine square times L square.
স্যার এটা মানে আপনার ওই 2/4 টার্মটা ছিল রাইট আপনার L square by 16 1 minus 9 sin square
এইটা হ্যাঁ 2 4
ওটাকে 1/4 করে দিয়েছি
because you are working with B matrices, I believe you would also have this term. Divided by e to the power 4. You see, B matrix had 1 by j square.
Yeah. Are we taking the B matrices as along with the J?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
B multiplying B multiplying
1 by
U
J.
hat must give you W double prime. W double prime is the second derivative with respect to physical coordinate. How else you will get derivative with respect to physical coordinate?
Okay. I just took the.
Yeah, you should take that. You should take that. পরের ক্লাস করাতে মানে
হ্যাঁ
পরের ক্লাস করাতে মানে
আজকে আজকে মানে তিনটে সাড়ে আড়াইটে
আচ্ছা আমার যদি 12:30 অসুবিধা আছে
না
সেটা আমাদের ক্লাস শুরু হতে একটু দেরি হবে। আচ্ছা এই পার্টটা কি বুঝতে পারছো যে এখানে 16 ডিভাইডেড বাই e টু দি পাওয়ার 4 কেন হবে বুঝতে পারছো না?
না।
আচ্ছা এখানে সবকটা টার্ম ক্যালকুলেট করা হয়ে গেছে
না
মানে এদিকেরটা হয়ে গেছে মানে সিমেট্রিক পার্টটা এদিকের পার্টটা
না সিমেট্রিক পার্টটা করতে হবে
না ওটা তো জাস্ট বেসিক্যালি এটা
হ্যাঁ
আপার ট্রায়াঙ্গেলটা হয়ে গেছে
হ্যাঁ আপার ট্রায়াঙ্গেলটা হয়ে গেছে আপার
হয়ে গেছে?
ট্রায়াঙ্গেলে ইয়েস স্যার
করে দাও।
আপার ট্রায়াঙ্গেল পুরোটাই হয়ে গেছে আপনার এখানে শুধু একটাই টার্ম বাকি আছে মানে
দুটো term।
এই দুটো আর এই -3 আচ্ছা হ্যাঁ মাঝখানে আছে।
So this term is going to be
-3 LE by 8
minus 3
LE by 8
LE divided by 8
bracketed 3 xi square minus i
3 z square
minus i.
z.
Basically the negation of the 1/4 term, 1/2 term.
Yes, yes, actually. So this 3 LE by 8 3 z square
Minus i.
minus z. হয়ে গেল? তাহলে এই আটটা টার্ম এই 10টা টার্ম আমাদের হয়ে গেল। ঠিক আছে? এবার এবার দেখো আমি কি করব। এবার হচ্ছে বি ট্রান্সপোজ বি কে এখানে এই যে এলিমেন্ট সিকোয়েন্স ম্যাট্রিক্স I can write it to be EI times LE divided by 2 integration B transpose B design লিখতে পারি তো EI LE divided by 2 outside B transpose B design okay whatever is inside is element sequence matrix তার মধ্যে আমি এই দুটো পার্ট সরিয়ে নিলাম and this integration runs from -1 to 1 and that's how the fun begins. The thing is all the odd functions should be negative. Okay. The odd function of course is xi. So I can write this to be -1 to 1. But anytime you see xi, get rid of it. Okay. তাহলে আমি এখানে মুছে করছি তোমরা নতুন করে লিখে করবে। Okay. So get rid of xi, get rid of xi, get rid of xi, no xi, no xi, no xi, because in integrating between -1 to 1 it would not survive. So integration -1 to 1 B transpose B design is essentially integration from 0 to 1 but twice for all of these given functions. করে দাও নিচের পার্টটা সিমেট্রি উপরের পার্টটাই করে দাও 10টা টার্মকে ইন্টিগ্রেট করতে and the integration is also from 0 to 1. Divided by 80 to the power 4 -1 to 1. Now you need to integrate all of these functions.
Sir, 32 টা
32 কেন হলো? 16 divided by 80 to the power 4 হচ্ছিল। Now I'm integrating from 0 to 1. সেই জন্য okay. এই 1 4 আর 3 4 টার্মগুলোতে 3/8 হবে তো
1/4 and 380/8 is IQ.
and 3 4 3 4 would be minus 3 by না না আমি বলছি
3/4 টা না 3/4 টা স্যার মাইনাস আসবে হ্যাঁ রাইট
minus 3/8
minus 3/8 any is IQ.
হ্যাঁ